Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it's NMeade here, and welcome back for some more time trial content on the channel, especially speedruns. Haven't had a speedrun in quite some time, and this is the first time I'm doing a speedrun of the online TT mode for 32 tracks. You would think, why am I doing an online TT versus but offline? This is for practice, get the reps in, because I'm going to be doing some more online TT Lounge very soon, preparing myself, getting some practice right now. I thought, no better way than to throw myself into a gauntlet of all 32 tracks. One try each, the same format with all the mushrooms there, with each track that we are playing. And so yeah, we are here trying to get better at the video game because your boy has been doing all that much time trials in the past couple of months. I recently started warming up again around like maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and I happened to have gotten second worldwide on N64 Bowser's Castle at the time. To my surprise, I wasn't really gunning for like an overall PB or anything, just for practice. Sorry if you can hear thunder, by the way. It's actually thundering right now, but hopefully that ends pretty soon. But yeah, I also thought, I haven't done like a post-commentated, version of any speedrun before. It's mostly just like from a live commentary perspective. So I'm going to try and at least, maybe express and explain some things that are going in my head, like some strats I go for or I don't go for. Like this thing here, I'm trying to go for the curb hop here to have my shroom last a lot longer on the shroom all 3 laps. I'm using the flame runner, not by my own choice here, but because I think you can enable where it does the roll marker combo for every single track. But I don't use the roll marker combo for every track, like Rainbow Road, Daisy Circuit, things of that nature. I use a different combo, so I thought the next best thing I could do is just do Flame Runner for all 32 tracks. So normally in online TT, I use the Spear in that track, but that's what I was going for on Luigi Circuit. Now, Moo Meadows, this one went pretty sketchy in this attempt here. But, I just kept on going because I want to show like a practical representation of what doing a literal one try, you can't reset, especially in the online TT, capacity when playing against other players in the series. I can't click start and reset because it's just one try. And you either, survive or you don't. You have to make some good, wise decisions on the racetrack, my fellas. So, first lap was pretty bad for my standard. Missed the third main turbo there in lap 1. It's pretty hard because if your pace is a little bit slower, then the moles become more of a problem. And I missed the low jump outright lap 2. It was a little bit too far to the left there. I can say that. But it was still a low 0.6, so not all that bad for missing the low jump outright. I think I had a mishap here on lap 3. I got slowed down by the mole trail, and I think I got wheelie lapped later on. So pretty much I'll explain like my mindset whenever, I play this game mode for the series. So you see my live commentary reactions, but, as I'm speaking and commentating, during the races, I'm doing a lot of thinking internally. A lot of this is just damage control and risking what you deem is risk worthy in your bag of tricks, depending on how good and consistent you are at different tracks, because all the competitors are very good at different tracks, and to be, the ace at all the tracks is very hard to do. So you either choose what strategies are worth the risk to do. There are some things I choose not to do whatsoever in this game mode competitively, where others may deem it worth it to them. So here on Mushroom Gorge, probably the biggest thing I would say has been my problem for a while is the mushroom cut. There is the hopless gap you can do, and I figured out why I was failing it so many times. And I opted not to go for it in this run here because of what happens on the last trick here, lap 1. I get a side trick. Now, why do side tricks matter? Well, if you get a side trick on a single tricking, terrain like that, I found this out from my longtime friend in the community, Doom. I found this out because on Coconut Mall, of all things, I felt that my back wheel couldn't go down all the way. And what happens is if you get a left or a right side trick off a single tricky ramp or terrain, then you're kind of locked in that, I guess, plane is the best way I can really say. And unless you get a double flip trick, it won't break that, I guess, state that your bike is in. Kind of vague, but that's how it's explained to me. So if you see on my input viewer, I'm holding straight down the entire time for a lot of these tricks, and my bike is pretty much neutral in the air. That's because I got a side trick. I'm not going for side tricks at all. It's just Gcn D-pad things, unfortunately. I'm clicking up on the D-pad every single time, but like there, like I hit the top first, but then like the left side trick was also registered, and that took precedent over the up trick. But yeah, that's why I chose to go for the hopping shortcut all through laps here. Having that game knowledge acquired, I understand why I was failing the hopless gap so many times, because since I can't have my bike tilt all the way down, I was failing the cut so many times when I was doing the right thing the entire time. I knew it was going crazy. Like, I knew I wasn't doing it that far off from what people were normally doing. But anyway, a mid 143 is still pretty good by my standard there in Mushroom Gorge. We're here on Toad's Factory now. And a lot of people, to my surprise, they do opt to go for the 2-1-0 shroom strategy here. The 2 shrooms lap 1 being to use them to get underneath the stompers here. And you may think, does it really save all that much time? The answer is yes. It saves a lot of time. But the margin for error is very, very small, where if you are a little bit too slow, you either clip the back of the first stomper or you get squished. And as I was mentioning earlier, you have to weigh out the risk versus reward on what you're good at and consistent at. Side note here, I forgot to use my shroom lap 1, so I started off my lap as like a fast lap here in lap 2. I had some fails here at the end of lap 2, you guys are going to see a little bit later on. But yeah, I choose to go for 1-1-1 here, just to cancel out the chain wheelie in the middle and do the shroomless cut all 3 laps. To me, I'm not all that consistent at doing the 2 shroomer on 1 try at the beginning of lap 1. If I get squished on lap 1, I'm already in last place for contention in an online TT race. So I go for what's most consistent for me. And unfortunately there, I missed the low trick on laps 1 and 2. I went to the bulldozer. So yeah, 37.42 mushrooms. It's great, it's great. Oh man. But I'm happy I just brute force this entire speed run here for practice, because I have a couple of very good 1 tries in this run here, and a couple of other runs like this where, you know, I have some glaring mistakes, but it's all about keeping your composure, staying focused, having some backup strats in mind too. So, you know, even when I'm commentating during these series, I'm thinking about all these backup strats that I have, keeping the cycles in mind. You know, if I crash into a wall here, the bulldozer, the stomper patterns might affect me. I might have to jump around them, or the crates, so on and so forth. But I made lap 3 pretty solid. So a low 152, not ideal. I want around like a mid 151 as a 1 try. That's pretty easy to get for a 1-1-1. But now we're up to Merry Circuit. And this one, for some reason, it lags a lot in the start. So I didn't know when to press A at all, and I didn't get a full rocket launch, but that's besides the point. The rest of this run is actually pretty funny. So you're going to see, I normally don't do Flame Runner here. I use the Spear for online TT, obviously. But irregardless of that fact, this Goomba and I collide. And so I use my shroom right away. Now, here's what goes through my mind when I have an occurrence like that. If I hit a moving object like a Goomba, or if I go to a complete standstill like a wall, or I go into heavy grass or lighter grass, you have a decision to use a mushroom to get back to full speed, but sacrificing taking one of the shroom cuts during your run. So at least on this track, you can do the 2 shroomer, as I'm doing right now, very poorly by the way, because I couldn't make up my mind what lap I wanted to do it on. I was thinking about the chain chomp cycles, but at this point I'm going so dreadfully slow in my pace that I don't even know where the chain chomps are anymore, with not using the spear and my mistakes. So pretty much, you can have 1 alignment with 1 wheelie here at the end. And at least here in online TT, the chain chomps aren't aggressive towards your proximity. You're more so on the timer. But yeah, this was pretty poor. but pretty good representation of what happens and what I like to do in terms of damage control when things go wrong. So obviously hitting a Goomba not intended, I felt it was worthwhile just to shroom right back out to full speed in that scenario. So yeah, we just wash away Merry Circuit. We forget about that race. All right, we're moving on to Coconut Mall. This one had its mistakes, but I think I still got like a mid to high 157, I believe. And that's actually very good for my standard here for a one try. Sometimes I'm bold here and I try and go for the low banister on the first and second lap. But in my recent practice, I'm just going for the slower but more consistent banner that you normally do in lap 3, but I do in laps 1 and 2. And thankfully my controller is broken in enough now where I actually get some more right side tricks when I actually press it, so that's pretty good. That one was not ideal, obviously, but the rest of the run was actually pretty decent. So also one thing that comes with just more playtime, more experience, is having different paces throughout the laps on each track and keeping in mind cycles of moving objects like the cars here. I knew that at my pace I can't go for the triple zipper strat on lap 1, but I'm still fast enough to go to the left of the mid car and to do one drift on the last zipper of lap 1. But that timing window is so small where if you're a little bit slower, you have to wait for the car to start moving left in the mid car and then do like a double hop on the last zipper on lap 1. So a lot of this comes down just to, you know, being consistent, executing your strategies. If you mess up, kind of know some of the more common paces like here. I knew I was slow enough here where I can actually make that triple zipper on lap 2. Normally on a faster pace, you're not really doing that because the car is blocking the first zipper there. But if you're slow enough like I was with my mistakes, I can compensate a little bit by doing a faster triple zipper strategy. So pretty much I just go for, you know, most conservative driving by my standard. And thankfully I got most of the right side tricks in this run, so that's pretty good by my standard. And again, I normally don't even get a 157, let alone like a mid to high 157 on one try in most online TT sessions. So this was pretty good here. And I could have maybe tried to actually go to the left of that car right there, lap 3. But that comes down to experience, and again, as I come to say, assessing your risk versus reward. I could try and save a little bit more time because I purposely slowed down in that scenario to go to the right of the car and not crash. Save point 1 versus crashing and potentially going from like first to last. Or those points in the end can matter a result of me getting first and me getting 4th or 5th sometimes in the series. So now we're on to DK Summit. And this track is a lot of fun, but pretty scary at the same time. If you're just ever so slightly off a pace here, the Shy Guys can just be a brutal nightmare here for all 3 laps. Thankfully, with chopping down my time in years past, I kind of know right around the general patterns and timings for when the Shy Guy cycles are happening. So lap 1 here, I was pretty safe. I land on my back wheel from the double because that allows me to have more time to charge my main turbo from my angle and the speed that I had. If I were to land on my front wheel in that instance, I might not get the main turbo out in time before the zipper in the middle, gliding to the very end on the side zipper. That just comes with experience over time. As well, knowing, you know, how to modify your strategies. Like what I explained there on lap 1, that's a backup strategy. And I actually do that on lap 2 as well. So here I got a pretty bad third trick, but I held my drift and I had a much better alignment here. I had a very slow cut, so I landed on my back wheel once more to allow for more time for charging my main turbo. If I were to land on the front wheel, with going so slow in the air, I land sooner and have less room to charge my main turbo. So that's why I do that backup strategy in lap 2. And actually, I messed up the shortcut to some capacity in all 3 laps here. So I can actually explain this too. So lap 3 happens. I think I got somewhat decent triple. No, those are pretty bad. But my alignment here is pretty questionable. And I instantly bailed from my holding my drift. And I see a lot of people playing online make this mistake where they go off a launch like that, and you're clearly not going to make it to the other side. But if you saw, I released my drift at the apex of my airtime, and that makes me go a little bit further. Mechanically, I don't understand why that happens, but if people normally just hold their drift to the very end and they land very short, but 9 times out of 10, I can back that up and not fall just by releasing my drift there. So knowing that backup, I still got a somewhat respectable time versus falling off, losing 5+ seconds. Now we're here on Wario's Gomen, and because of the lag there, I didn't get the good timing for a good startup boost. And as I'm saying about, timings of cycles, this also comes to affect on Wario's Gomen very much. For the bats here each lap, and also the minecarts in the middle of the lap. So, since my lap 1 was so slow, I actually opt for a very old strategy that I used back in my firmware world records here way back in the day. Where the old world record strategy that I would do here in my runs was actually 1-2-0. So my lap 1 was so dreadfully slow that I actually opt to use one of my mushrooms on the uphill here. And the second mushroom is in the bats as well. The reason why is because I can make it past the minecarts at the middle of lap 2 by doing this. And that's what we would do back in the day for setting world record runs because we were too slow to get past the minecarts with just 2 mushrooms to begin with, way back in the day. For me now, I had to do that because I was too slow on lap 1. As a result, we drive lap 3 shroomless. Now, most of the time you're doing a twisting chain wheelie at the bats. Also, a 36.7 is not that bad for a 2 shroomer. That's actually right about my world record level laps back in the day with 2 shroomers. So that's not too bad. Here, I just opted for a straight wheelie. I tried twisting a little bit, but actually didn't work out. I got a half chain, which was actually pretty good. Ideally, you go for a twist chain and realign to the following turn to not lose as much time. But here, again, I wasn't going to test myself to go inside the minecart. Again, hitting a minecart, potentially falling off, versus throwing away maybe 0.3 to 0.5 for the sake of completing the run and securing a better placement versus doing a very heroic maneuver. Sometimes the heroic maneuvers like that could be deemed worthy, let's say it's the last race in the event, and if you do it, you win, and if not, you lose a lot of points. That is at your own discretion. So yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. Just me explaining my mindset and thought process as I'm going through racing with each of these tracks. Okay. Daisy Circuit, this one was probably my best run in the entire speedrun. I got a very good run here for the strategies I attempted here. So, I flew over the zipper here. I lost a lot of time on that. Apart from that, this run is actually very clean for what I attempt here. Traditionally, you're hopping at the zippers and the staircase to try and go for what's called a stair dive, where you actually clip off the back end, clip off the back end of, I guess, the balcony you're launching yourself out of, and it propels you forward and down and saves a whole lot of time. However, if you hop over that, you lose a whole lot of time. So if you notice here, I go for no hopping at all on the zippers. Hopping does still save a lot of time just to get a lower trick to reduce some airtime, but it's just not worth it to potentially fly over the entire zipper outside the balcony and lose so much time. So with that in mind, I actually got 2 low 30.0 laps on laps 2 and 3, with not going for that at all, and not going for the curb slip drift, which right over here on the right hand side, behind that blue cone, the actual strategy is doing a wheelie onto the lip of the curb, getting some airtime and getting a slip drift main turbo route, and that saves a whole lot of time doing it that way. But definitely not worthwhile doing it because the time window is so small, very risky for an online TT setting. I'm very proud of this run right here. I think that actually bests out my best one try in the actual online TT lounge itself. Of course, the different conditions, I'm here solo on my own versus the heat of the moment with other competitors. But yeah, that was probably the best run in the entire 32 tracks on this run today. Heading on now, we have Coop Cape, where we have just a smorgasbord of so many different strategies you can attempt to go for on this track. Now, in this one try setting, I'm pretty much defaulting now to just doing the very, very old strategy in 2008, 2009, where you shroom through the grass, where you actually do the shroomless cut now. Shroomless cut is way too inconsistent these days, and you know, you can try and be bold and go for it, and if you fail it, you kind of shroom through it. But at this point, I default to actually just shrooming through it altogether, because at the end over here, you can do either the pipe clipping strategy and shroom through the water, or the older strategy of doing a delayed right trick into the top corner of that rock over there, which is just slightly slower than the pipe strategy, and then you still shroom through the water at the end into lap 2 on that waterfall. For me, these are the strategies I'm most comfortable with doing. Also here, just jumping in, I hit the wall there. I was kind of surprised by that, so I just made sure I was still at decent enough speed to still recover for the trick off the wooden ramp. And I think I got that up pretty well. I didn't freak out all that much. But yeah, a lot of this for a one try is just reacting to what's happening and making a decision for what's coming up and try and, you know, catch yourself. Last thing that can, you know, that you should let happen to you in this game mode is letting one fail lead to a cascade of multiple fails. Now, that happens to me quite a bit in the series. I think I've gotten better at that as time has gone on. But yes, it's very easy for one little fail to cascade to multiple fails, and then the whole mindset shift happens mid-run. You're trying to do damage control, so trying to race fast, trying to beat the competitors, but you don't want to go, you know, so far sideways. Like, also over there, if you re-enter the stream at a certain angle, I believe, you catch the current the wrong way, and you actually just drift all the way to the right like that. And that's not intentional, it's slower, but thankfully it didn't cost me too much time here. But yeah, so a lot of this is just damage control, and it's not letting your mental go into a giant cascade down and deferring you from racing as best and consistently as you can. Still, a 222, a high 222, not that great at all for my standard, but I would still take that anyway given how I race that. Ideally, like a high 221 or a very low 222 is what I'm going for on that track. Now, I think I'm most known for my accolades on this track in the series. So, with all that being said, and check this out. Yeah, so I barely hit the fence, and I had to sacrifice another mushroom there. So that was one scenario where with the fence hit, my first shroom boost would leave me stuck in the grass. I have to use that mushroom to recover my speed. Just a bunch of slop here on lap 1, unfortunately. But I recomposed myself here on the treetop, kind of refocused, and I assembled my game plan. So I figured my lap 1 was going to be near a 48 lap 1. So I figured just to use my one remaining mushroom on lap 2. That way I can go clear of the wigglers on lap 2 and just get a very fast lap and hopefully get clear of the wigglers on the treetop on lap 3 given my pace. Despite all those mistakes, still a low 47. So my objective here now is to get a mid 45 one shrimmer, which is not too hard of a task for me to do these days. So lap 2 is going pretty good by my standard, but then on the treetop, my alignment was very, very bad and I was not at full speed. I did some wheelie turns. Probably lost, honestly, like at least 0.2 the whole maneuver, if not a little bit more. And that U-turn was actually pretty poor, fortunately. But I got a drop chain, but I got some air time to be back at full speed on the down bridge section. I got 2 tricks here based on the cycle of the net, and I still got a 45.8 lap. Not too bad, but not what I was really going for. So at this point in the canon, I'm like, should I be going, especially when I made that mistake, I'm like, should I be going for the wheelie strategy? Should I hold my main turbo out? I thought I was still safe enough, so I actually go for the wheelie strategy in the treetop over here and barely make it right under the wiggler there. So that was good. And pretty much the end of this run is actually hilarious. This was more so like a free run. Just watching this whole thing. It was so bad, but check this out over here. So I get thrown out to the left over here. I say, you know what, I'm just gonna go for the left ending trick here. Miss the main turbo, get a low drifting trick, and I got a low 220. Very horrible by my own personal standards here. Pretty much a 217 or a low 218 is in the cards anytime I touch this for a one try, but that still would net me a pretty decent spot in the online TT game mode. So yes, a lot of backup strategies there. I chose not to swoop all the way to the right for the zipper there because the time loss is going to be very minimal, honestly, with that. And now we head on to Grumble Volcano, where I've actually gotten a little bit better here in the past half year, on and off. This is traditionally my least favorite / my worst track overall racing-wise with my skill here. So I've been putting in some work on and off in the past year. If you guys may have watched at the end of last year, I made a timesheet video of all my personal best times, and I got my first 153 here a couple of months ago. And I'm better at the low trick at the beginning of the volcano section. I'm honestly a lot better at the mushrooms and these load tricks at the end, but on this day, almost nothing went right, unfortunately. However, the ending time was still pretty decent. It's right around what I normally get anyway, if not a little bit better than my average on this track for a one try. So I make a whole boatload of mistakes, but my overall faster driving now kind of makes up for it with putting in some more practice here. So the practice does pay off, my fellas. Most commonly, I get a question of how do I get better at the game or this track or this strategy, and I always give the honest answer right away that the more time investment that you put in this or anything else, the better you're going to be. And that's how I got good so quickly when I started back in 2008. I just slaved away so many hours day after day trying to get better. And, you know, people may have some natural talent for learning some games or another skill, but nothing will be just the raw time that you put into trying to learn something, which is this game, as we're discussing right now. But yes, this was actually pretty standard. This is a pretty good stream for me, lap 3. I am maneuvering around all the fire snakes. I still got a low 155. That's actually pretty good for my standard here for a one try. And if I can replicate that every time, ideally getting 154, so will be the next big step here for consistency. However, at this point in the speedrun, this happens. So I was so confused. I'm like, is this a fault of just running this game mode in the versus mode? But then I'm like, let me check and see how many races were enabled, because I don't remember ever changing this to my memory. So check this out. It was set to 12 races, of course. So I set it to 32, and I just hopped right into the special cup. Oh man, I almost rolled the data circuit by mistake. But yeah, I decided not to restart the speedrun here. Again, I might do some more of these in the future. If you guys like this, by the way, give it a big juicy thumbs up. And if you guys like these post-commentated runs, definitely let me know. I believe this is the first time ever doing this in general, so hopefully you guys are enjoying this so far. Here comes Big Ol' Dry Ruins, one of my favorite tracks in the whole game, and all of Mario Kart in general. This is one of my best tracks in general. Now, discussing earlier about which strategies I go for was deemed a good risk or not, I never ever go for the Ultra 3 Shroom strategy here into lap 2. It's funny because honestly, maybe 7 or 8 times out of 10 in an online race with triple mushrooms I actually make it, but it's not worth the risk to me. If you fail it, go into the little, pyramid thing over there, the little statue, and you fail or come up short, you can also fall off into the water as well in the recovery. It's just not worthy of a risk for me, so I don't go for it. I just go for 1-1-1. Now, I missed that pillar trick, and then I got the clip on the top of the corner over there. So quite a lot of mistakes in a short period of time. And pretty much in my mind here at this moment, I'm like, okay, just stay focused, reset, try and glide into the sand, and just everything goes wrong here. So into lap 3, I'm like, alright, fresh lap, just make the best of it, try and make up lost time. I miss a main turbo. See, all these mistakes are trying to add up. I'm still actually pretty decently composed here mentally as I'm playing. Because, you know, I'm pretty confident in my abilities, especially on this track. I get a nice little wall glitch over there. Confidence is starting to come back mid-race. And then I get a slip here right into the wall. This goes very horribly. Pretty much what's most ideal is getting around a 151 or a 152 here for a 111. So a 154 is terrible by my own personal standard. I would not be happy with that performance in an online TT race. That would probably net me close to last place versus the competitors. But we take that in stride. This is what the practice is for, right? Now we're on here to Moonview Highway. I'm actually pretty proud of my performance here on Moonview Highway. I do a couple of backup strategies that I'll show you guys later on and why I actually do them. So Moonview Highway, this track has been a little bit complicated in my history here of the game mode. Should I go for the traditional, you know, shroom strategy for online? Should I go for a consistent, slower shroom strategy for the sake of car patterns on lap 3? I thought, why not just go for the actual time trial strategy here? Now, the time trial strategy is 0 to 1. Ideally, lap 1 you want a 35.2 or a little bit lower. I think I get a 0.4 here lap 1 if I'm not mistaken. No, 0.3. So I shroom early to get around that first yellow car in the front as early as possible to not, you know, crash, because I've gotten flat on the front end of that yellow car way too many times at that slow of a pace. You would shroom a little bit later, ideally, and cut more of the grass, so on and so forth, but I went for a safer strategy there, and it did the job. So coming up here at the end of lap 2, lap 2 wasn't all that bad. It had bad spots, but not all that bad. Now, my pace is too slow to do the shroom strategy in front of the milk truck and the blue car, so I'll wait to go around that, which worked. I go for 3 main turbos here because I can't do one full swoop here of a wheelie, like in a time trial, because the red car is in the way. Now, the yellow car is going to come out over here, so I purposely miss a zipper, cut the inside to avoid it. And then I know the truck is coming here, so I hop over a zipper, intentionally take it tight, and not get flattened by that at all. So, that lost a decent amount of time. If I went for everything, I probably had the leeway to maybe make both of those in front of both of those obstacles for like a high 144. But I'm very happy with those backup strategies there. Hopping over a zipper to purposely lose time to avoid hitting a car is highly underrated on that track in online TT and even normal online racing. So I'm pretty proud of that performance. We move on now to Bowser Castleweek, one of my favorite tracks of all time in any Mario Kart, especially in this one no less. And so I click hop on the first ramp, and as we all know on BC Wii, the first hop never works, so I don't get it. That's fine. So on this track, so many things can go wrong. Very hard track to do a proper one try. A lot of this track comes down to understanding the cycles here for the pinwheel fireballs all throughout the beginning over there. My wheelie twist too tight to the right. I get a wheelie lock there as well. I had to sacrifice a mushroom, miss another main turbo over here, all the bounce, so on and so forth. A lot went wrong in a short period of time. So I kind of recomposed myself here. I focus right down the middle for some tricks on the geysers. I see my lap 1 is near 49 lap. I know I have to race pretty decent to not get messed up by any of the fireballs on the pinwheels or the... yeah, I think all of them are pinwheel fireballs, actually. The bigger ones and the smaller ones in the half-pipe section. My objective here is just not being so slow where they're actually obstructing my racing path. And thankfully, I went race fast enough where that wasn't a problem at all at this point. The thwomps aren't a problem here from how slow I am. They're actually a good ways up. That was a very good backup by me there. I realized I was going to go into the wall from that unlucky air time, so I released my drift and just tug hard left, and it actually worked, which was pretty good. Now, lap 3, I just kind of go all out after this very bad maneuver here. So, this lap 3 with that very poor beginning is still I think a low 47.2. I have no idea how. I think I got a little bit of a trick boost into lap 3, but not that much. So, end of this lap 3, I just kind of go crazy, and it goes very well, thankfully. It goes the way it normally goes when I play well on this track. If things just go my way, there's no reason why I'm not getting mid 222s every single try here, pretty much. I think also my geysers were pretty good here, I believe. That was good. That was a very good last turn. Let's see, I got one here. Yeah, yep. So that was pretty solid. That was still a 223. I mean, yeah, 265 lap 3 with all that mistakes. But either way, I'm not happy unless I'm getting a mid to high 222. That's very practical for my skill set. Certainly not the best at that track. Many others are far faster and more consistent than me on that track. They can probably bust out high 221s or 222s whenever they want. But that's not me, but that's okay. We're here now to Rainbow Road. And apart from the end of lap 3 on this run, this is actually pretty good by my standard. This track is particularly hard for the strategies that you choose to use versus the cycles of this right here. Now, on the zipper here, you get a double flip trick. Double flip tricks give you a much longer rocket boost when you land, compared to a single trick that you get. The boost is a lot shorter. So on the waves there, you're trying to prioritize hopping on each trick to get lower airtime, and trying to land on the zipper part for a double flip trick on all 3 laps. This really takes into account memorizing your patterns with the timer, with like different locations on the track to know your pace pretty much. So here, a low 50.2. It's pretty average, I would say, for the strategies I'm going for. Purposely don't go for the shroomless and this game mode. Got a very bad landing there. So pretty much, I thought I could have just risked not getting the last trick there and just hop and reduce airtime and get the zipper. But that has been failing me sometimes, so I decided just to go for all 3 single tricks and not try and risk it for the double flip trick, because if you just fly over that zipper without tricking on it, you lose a lot of time. At least I got the single trick out for some sort of a trick boost. So that's really coming down to game knowledge, understanding your terrain, how you can maneuver the patterns that you're given, and your set of circumstances. Now here, unfortunately, the main turret did not come out. I don't know how. So that was a very poor lap by my standard. Also, my camera angle locked here. So I just stayed composed, did my trick here. I think I was still able to manage a double flip trick on lap 3. Yeah, so if you see my input viewer, I'm like hopping a lot and I'm tricking at the same time to make that work. Also, these little figure 8 tricks, you can actually just ride up onto them and just straight up just click trick and you actually trick them. But also, if you hop onto them and like drift on them and do a hop trick, then you also can get a trick out as well. Just a little fun little bit of trivia there. It's kind of similar to how on BC Wii, the wavy carpet, you can actually force a trick out by hopping and then tricking. Little known fact there. And I just ever so barely missed it to the right of that ending zipper there, unfortunately. However, still a 231, not that terrible. That would still net me a fairly decent placement in an online TT lounge race anyway. So I wasn't too fussed about that. Overall, I didn't fall off. Actually, in the first half of this run, I didn't fall off at all, or have any like major like stop to 0 kmh, build a standstill main turbo. I had a Goomba, yes, but not like a full-on like a wall hit, you know. Now to the back end for the retros here. Peach Beach. I honestly forgot what the actual strategy is here for the shrooms with Flame Runner. Once more, I would love to do the speedrun again if I could actually choose my proper combo for each race here. Probably in the title, I'm going to have the in-game timer, because the loading times, having this through Revolution with the game mode, the loading times are so long that pretty much this run in real time was just as long as a no item speed run, which makes no sense at all. especially for the fact that I'm having mushrooms chopping off like anywhere from like 3 to 10 plus seconds on some tracks versus like a shroomless run. So yes, we'll have the real in-game timer in the title of this because the load times are way too long and inconsistent here. But yeah, with all that being said, I forgot the actual shroom padding here for Flame Runner on this track. I always use a spear here, but I still made it work. It was like a low 115, which is not that terrible for a one try and forgetting what to even do here in general, so it wasn't all that bad. Ideally, like a low 114 is pretty good for Flame Runner here. You can get a 113, but that's very chain reliant for a Flame Runner, but that was not that bad. Ideally for a spear, I want anywhere from like a high 113 or a low 114 pretty much. Now here in the Yoshi Falls, I typically use spear here, but Flame Runner also works just as well, so I really didn't mind this all that much. And I actually got some fairly decent waterfall luck, but the final waterfall, not the beginning one. However, with that being said, I still got some pretty decent laps 1 and 2. Lap 3 was a little bit unfortunate, which you'll see, but I got the fast waterfall there on laps 1 and 2. And the fast waterfall means you're going through a lot faster with the main turbo propelling you through it. And you can get a slip drift from it as well from the airtime, which is what you do want to have happen. So pretty much here, I try and just drift on the very edge of that zipper before the waterfall. Because sometimes if you try and drift over like the corner chunk of the zipper, you can actually get some unintentional airtime and fly over the zipper. While being in a flat drift makes no sense, I know. I also got wheelie lock there. The wheelie did not come out, but I still did some pretty good damage control over there as well. So thankfully there, I cut off more of the zipper than I actually wanted to, but thankfully I didn't fly over it this time. My alignment was actually pretty bad. I had to yank in my wheelie, so that was fine. Lost maybe like 0.1. Also with yanking in my wheelie, I had to actually chain a wheelie before the finish line. So yeah, that's a little bit of game knowledge to have there, because I knew it was going so slow with my turn in my wheelie that I had to compensate by chaining a wheelie before the finish line. So yeah, we're here in Ghost Valley 2, and my lap 1 goes very bad. Unfortunately, the spin drift on lap 1 is very hard to do. To do the spin drift, but also get a soft drifting main turbo route. It took me a very long time to figure out how to do that properly, and if I hit the angle wrong on the analog, I just don't charge it whatsoever. But thankfully I recomposed myself on laps 2 and 3. The shrooms were very poor on laps 2 and 3, but the driving wasn't all that bad, to be honest. I still managed out a high 53 second time here, not all that terrible. Ideally, I want at least a 53.5, if not a 0.4 or a 0.3 even. My competition is like David, Ross, etc., where they get like low 53.1s or 2s like every single try. So I have to really raise my heart out here to be somewhat contention worthy for some points. But apart from that very poor lap 1 and poor mushrooms on laps 2 and 3, still not that bad for a 53.8 on GB2. Closing out now on one of my favorite tracks, Raceway. It starts out pretty poor, of course, unfortunate. We miss the first main turbo. Ah yes, the first main turbo, the bane of my existence. All those blue sparks, but no main turbo. Gotta love it, gotta love it. Regardless, I recomposed myself once more. I got some pretty bad luck on this run, and unfortunately, I did not get the slip here on all 3 laps. I actually missed that main turbo, I think 1 or 2 of the laps on laps 2 and or 3. The slip drift there is so simple on paper looking at it, but doing it in real time is just so dumb. What I found to have higher rates of success of actually getting that slip, for those of you who are trying to learn that, is I try and go for the wheelie pop and the slip right before my shroom boost wears out. I find that I get it more often than not when I actually try and release the main turbo and do that maneuver inside the shroom boost. But unfortunately, I I go a little bit stir crazy there, kind of standing in my rear view, just representing my frustration a little bit. But yes, hopefully that little tip can help. I try and do the slip drift inside the shroom boost right before it wears out, and I find I get the slip a little bit more often doing it like that, but even still, I'll do it on this run all 3 laps and I don't get the slip out at all. By missing the slip, I cannot charge the main turbo as fast, if at all. Look at all those bounces, how they go very far wide. The alignment here is even harder as well. It's a giant cascade that happens. So that's where it really comes down to having good backup strategies, realizing the spacing on the track to charge the backup main turbo efficiently and not to let that crumble your entire race. Very poor performance on my part here. A 143 is very poor for my standard. I should be getting low 142, so relative ease on most tries here if nothing goes too terrible. But yeah, that is Raceway. Now we head on to N64 Sherbet Land, where I am not really too experienced here in time trials with the Flame Runner on this track, only Magic Cruiser. I know some strategies from recently watching Vincent and Sean try to improve the Flame Runner record here on this track. I think it's like a low 207 now, if I remember correctly. Honestly, this run, for what it was and the strategies that I do, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible. I had a mishap on lap 3, we'll get to that. But yeah, I've never been one to seriously time trial this with anything apart from the Magic Cruiser. So take this one with a grain of salt here. I'm not using this combo in online TT, obviously, but even still, it's a one try. It's 3 mushrooms. It's making use of the strategies that you know and trying to do damage control like that. So ideally, you'd hop in one wheelie after the first crack hop, but my alignment was pretty poor, so I had to re-hop. If I try and budge in my wheelie, because of the terrain, I probably would have hit into the wall outright. So hopping out of the way earlier on was the play for sure. Thankfully, in the cave, it's actually normal terrain, so we're at 84 base speed drifting, 97 base speed in a wheelie. Get back to the icy terrain, we're back at 75 and then 87. So this terrain is a lot more slippery. I believe Funky has a little bit of an off-road bonus for what it's worth, but nothing beats the Magic Cruiser here, obviously. So, on lap 3, after the mushroom, we make it through, get the main turbo out, it's going pretty decent, and then the mistakes start to happen right when we enter the cave on lap 3. I don't know how that main turbo did not charge at all, and then I unfortunately went too tight there, and I had my first complete wall hit plank right into the wall, unfortunately. But apart from that, you know, I had no more mushrooms. My only option is to do a standstill main turbo. What you gonna do, right? Sometimes we have these, embarrassing wall hits. We take those in stride. No one can be absolutely perfect 100% of the time. Very poor time, but I had that giant mistake. So for what it wasn't all that bad for my standard. Moving on to Shaiga Beach, another track where I only use the Magic Cruiser. I do not test the waters. No pun intended, by the way. I just kind of realized. Like, the water, island. Okay, anyway. I don't test the waters with the spear here. I will at some point to improve my time. I always use the Magic Cruiser here, so I don't have to worry about the crab cycles at all. And this is the reason why. Like, you'll see here. Look at this. I go here. Yeah. So I get almost a 0 there from hitting the crab and spinning out, so you use a mushroom there. Kind of similar to how the mushroom was used on Merry Circuit, hitting into a Goomba as well. Spoiler alert, this run was very poor. I actually beat my finishing time shroomless many times with the Flame Runner, so it was very poor. This is why I always opt for the Magic Cruiser here. It's just so consistent, and you're not even worrying about the crabs whatsoever. I would much rather take a very consistent high 122 or low 123 and get at least mid-pack range results as opposed to racing this track with the Flame Runner or the Spear, where it's just way too inconsistent. It's way too brutal of a track for a one try with these vehicles in my eyes. Like, it's a giant cakewalk. It almost feels like cheating using the Magic Cruiser for a one try, to be honest with you, because the increased acceleration, The off-road bonus here, you can avoid all the moving objects like the crabs and the bombs, etc., etc. So this was a complete wash. Again, no pun intended. It was a giant wash here. But yeah, that's what happened on this wonderful track. Coming up, we'll be having some DS Delfino Square. Very good track. A track I have not seriously time trialed at length, probably in almost 10 years. I think my actual PB is like 9 years old, from 2012, I think. I would have to reference my my timesheet video for that one. Regardless, this also is a track where it's dictated heavily so on your pace. Reason being is the faster you travel on lap 1, the lower the trick you can get on the drawbridge. So my lap 1 was atrocious here. And what you're going to see is instead of the bridge being at a very low angle to get a very low trick, the bridge was almost completely up. And you kind of hear the sound effect where it actually like clings shut to being at the most upright position. Let's just listen. Yeah, like I was so close to it being at the highest altitude where I get a higher trick and lose even more time with that being said. Lap 1, very poor. 42.4s are very bad for my standard, and I get 2 drop chains and bounces at the top of the straight here. I lost probably at least 0.3 on the straight alone. My main objective here right now, in my mind as I was racing here, is to get to the drawbridge before it starts going down on lap 2. My racing was so bad on these laps 1 and 2, where if you're too slow, the drawbridge starts going down. If it starts going down when you're on the bridge, then you actually get airtime. You don't hit the last zipper to get a trick off of it. I think I literally like busted that hop trick right before the bridge was starting to go down from how slow I was. That last turn was like a hat turn. That just looked complete task. I felt like a god doing it in the moment at least. So got a full chain wheelie, got a drop bounce lap 3. Still could bust it like a 41.1 or so on lap 3. I actually think I got that in this run here. Lap 3 has always been my strongest lap here playing this track. It's only where I make up most of my time. Lap 3 is the easiest lap to race on this track by far. It's a giant cakewall for me. Laps 1 and 2 are terrorizing. Probably like my tier list is lap 2 is the hardest, lap 1 is the second hardest, and lap 3 is just the easiest in the race pretty much. My slip was so bad here, I lost a whole lot of time on that. Bouncy last turn, but still got a mid 41.1 lap 3, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 177, not all that bad for what I was given. Honestly, a near 205 with that poor of a run, I'll take that any day. Ideally, anything 205 is what I'm looking for there in an online TT race. Now, one of my favorite tracks, another one of my favorites is Waluigi Stadium. So much tech here, this is so hard to do for a one try. So I think my lap 1 has some reasonable mistakes, but nothing too groundbreaking. I still got like a low 37 lap 1. But then laps 2 and 3 go very poorly. Thankfully, I got a down trick to register all 3 laps in the wall bounce. That saves a whole lot of time compared to doing an up trick there. Now I do go for the turn skip all 3 laps as standard. Lap 1 was the only turn skip that went well. Laps 2 and 3 went very poor, but I'll explain how I backed those up. So lap 1, again, had a good amount of mistakes, but had a nice tricking, like drifting last trick, but had bad landing. Pretty much whenever I go into a new lap is like my mental reset point, I'll say as well, just to kind of forget what I actually did beforehand. Last thing you want to have happen is to have the mistakes of lap 1 bleed over into laps 2 and 3 and throw off your mental game when playing. So this turn skip would have been pretty good. I don't know how it didn't wrap around the entire way through, but when that happens, when I land like that, I hold as hard left as possible when I land during the entire trick boost. The trick boost lasts for a whole amount of time. It's so long when you get the giant trick boost in the turn skip. That's why it saves so much, by the way, as well. Apart from cutting the corner, you have the just insane propelled boost launching you through the double mounts before that following turn each lap. So here in lap 3, again, another mental reset point. I got a slip I didn't want here, but I still backed it up pretty well. I go for a turn skip once more. And I knew that was going to be bad because my angle was too steep trying to go for the second trick around the corner. I almost just go into the heavy mud there, bias maneuver from my spacing on the racetrack to, I think I even like released my drift twice to give myself enough room, because the terrain, if you go into heavy mud, you're pretty much game over there. So that was a very poor run by my center, but to be fair, that's probably top 3 hardest track to one try in general in the entire game, in my opinion. But that ends the Banana Cup. Entering the Leaf Cup here, we have DS Desert Hills. This one goes overall pretty well, but some costly mistakes which you'll come to see in this run. This track for me, when I play it, I'm more so concerned about the fire snake patterns and also the pokies on laps 2 and 3. If you're anywhere out of your normal pace, the cycles can become very terrorizing, and the sandy terrain makes it, pretty hard to do some quick maneuvers. With that being said, so first lap, a 32.02, not all that bad for my standard, with not getting a wheelie cut on lap 1. Lap 2 starts off pretty good. Honestly, I think even all of lap 2 was fairly decent. I'm always very conscious of getting a good clean landing right there. If you get a bad landing there, you lose legit 0.3 or 0.4 per lap. It's that costly. End of lap 2 here. I press a wheelie to come out and it doesn't come out. I see on the D-pad it actually registered, but no wheelie comes out, so that was pretty frustrating. So that's why I had to hop around a good amount of times to avoid the fire snakes entering lap 3. And this one too, I had to be very conscious of. And my alignment was going all over the place. And the pokey was very close. So you see how even this very small, minute mistakes can add up to throw off your cycles for all these moving objects here on any track. At the end, I had no idea where the fire snakes were going to be, so I played it very safe. And I got a low 137. Not ideal by any means. I want a low 136 most of the time. But with all that being said, I didn't actually go into out of bounds like I've done in one episode before. Didn't go into a pokey or a fire snake, so it was all good. Now we have GBA Bowser Castle 3. Very fun track, especially for the shortcut categories. But we're doing no shortcut. No shortcut, by the way. So, on this track, it's all about trying to not fall off on the low jumps. Not only that, but also you never go for the 4th low here. The physical distance between the island on the 3rd and 4th is a little bit further. So you can still make it in time trials, but it's a lot more difficult to do. Not worth it trying to save 0.2 versus falling off in lava, no less. If you notice back there, I actually clipped the second low trick. Thankfully I didn't fall off. But with that in mind, what I purposely did back there is I purposely didn't go for the following low trick. I found that even like an online play, if I actually clip the back end of a platform and I go for the following low trick, I almost always fail it. Reason being is if you clip the platform, some of your trick boost is being wasted. And you may go into the following yellow bumper not at a trick boost speed. If you're going into one of the yellow bumpers trying to do a low trick with no type of boost, like a trick boost ideally, then you actually just fall off outright, which is not what you want to have happen, obviously. So with that in mind too, with my pacing, I try and be very much so to the left on the actual alignment through all the low jumps and all 3 laps. Case being the actual fireball that flies up back there, I don't want to be tricking right into that, so I purposely stay all the way to the left, and that kind of mitigates that type of risk. Other notable time saves can also come from getting good chain wheelies here. Got a half chain there, not all that bad. Honestly, anything below a 46.3 is not too terrible for my own personal standard here. I have gotten 45s before in this game mode in the series, and also offline with purposely missing the 4th low. So that's more so ideal. I always try and gun for a 218 of any capacity here as a good benchmark to go for. Obviously, sometimes it doesn't go as planned. Sometimes you actually drift into one of the walls, or more than one wall, you fall off, or you go into a thwomp. So all that being said, I think this was actually like a lower 220. Not happy with that performance, but with all that happened here, I can't be too upset. But yes, ideally, I'm going for... Actually, no, I was actually a lower 219. So, alright, so, again, wasn't all that terrible, but anything in 218, I'm generally very happy with my skill set on this track. Now we head to another special case of a track, being Parkway. Of course, we're only using the Mach Bike here for the online TT lounge attempts. Of course, in this game mode here with Speedrun, I'm forced to use a Flame Runner, unfortunately. So this track is pretty not fun to play, to put it bluntly, with this vehicle. Just because the terrain is so slippery, and compared to playing with the Mach Bike, it's just not a fun experience. Especially for the Shroom. The Shroom is just misery with the Flame Runner. But I'll give a couple of pointers here for how you can actually improve your Shroom when doing this track with the Flame Runner. Fun fact, you can actually wheelie on the sloped edge there and not actually go into the grass. So it's a nice little backup strat over there. So here's what I do here. Unfortunately, my drift didn't cut in tight enough there lap 1. I got into the grass and I slowed down considerably, but that didn't warrant me using the extra mushroom. Here's the reason why. One, I was slowed down a good amount, yes, but not to 0. I didn't like fly into the grass near like the palm tree as an example. Perhaps a bigger reason, number 2, is the amount of time you save using the mushroom properly here versus what I would have saved with the shroom to give out the top speed. It wouldn't make sense at all. This is one of the shrooms where it makes sense to save your mushroom to actually do the actual cut, as opposed to using the shroom right away. So I try and space myself really wide here with Funky's drift, and important here, I drift right before I hit the first dark line of the mud. If you try and use your shroom right after touching the mud, your bike kind of stutters a little bit, and you actually go very wide and don't even cut the turn tight at all most of the time. You actually do the same thing with the Mach Bike and time trials as well. You shroom just right before hitting any part of that heavier mud section. So it ensures that you take the turn with the shroom very tight, but you have to do some damage control where, you know, you can hold hard left the entire time, but you might go too sharp and hit the ending cave wall. So if you notice my input view on all 3 laps, when I use this mushroom here, I kind of rock back and forth like that a little bit too. Just to play it safe and make sure I don't actually fly into the cave wall by turning too sharp there. So my shrooms lap 2 and 3 were executed much better than lap 1. My lap 3 slow is actually pretty decent. It was almost a 44, which is not too shabby at all. Now we come to one of my favorites, Gcn Merry Circuit, aka Gcn Slot Circuit. So, mostly because it's pretty much human RNG, quote unquote, if you get airtime or not, into this shroom and outside of this shroom. Okay, so lap 1, I slowed down on the exit of the mushroom, wasn't all that bad. My objective here in my mind is being fast enough to take that left path like that down the straight on lap 2 to avoid getting eaten by the piranha plant. I got very bad human RNG there where normally you fly over that grass, but I got no airtime, so I got unlucky there. So my lap 1 was too slow to take the left portion of the straight lap 2, which is where you're actually going to come to find. Now, I also, unfortunately, took that a little too tight, also hit the wall, and hit the coping over here. But I spin drift right out of here to avoid getting eaten by the piranha plant, because I knew I was so slow that piranha plant actually comes down around that time. Of course, to make matters worse, I get a good double trick on laps 2 and 3, just to, you know, make it sing a little bit more on this track. But yes, this is very... Oh, then again, no airtime lap 3. We're getting everything here, folks, of all the things that can go wrong. So, a whole lot of backup strats you're seeing here. Pretty much, it's all about learning when the cycles are for the piranha plants on the straight and trying to minimize hitting the Goombas here in lap 1 and knowing what to do if you get no airtime on any of those sections like I did on laps 1, 2, and 3 of this run. So, that was a very terrible time for me. If I get everything, ideally, I always get a 131 here. So, yeah, that was not a good performance, but we take that in stride, as always. We head now to the Lightning Cup, the last cup in the speedrun. Again, if you guys are liking this post-commentated video, let me know. I'll be sure to do some more in the future. Merry Circuit 3, again, another track where I only use the Mach Bike for online TT mode. I do go for a triple main turbo here, and it just sends me left there for no reason. I have no idea why. So this run was just very poor as well, all 3 laps. However, I do have like a 118.6 here, or a 0.7 I think, with the Flame Runner, so I'm not too terrible here. Like, my lap 2 was a little bit better. Actually, my lap 2 was actually fairly decent apart from hitting the wall lap 2 in the mushroom, which you're actually going to come and see. So that's a triple main turbo the way it should have happened lap 1, but it didn't for unknown reasons. Now the shroom here, I barely take it a little bit too tight. Thankfully I didn't go to 0 kmh. If I went to 0 on that cut, a shroom would have been used immediately to recover. Just a little FYI over there. But thankfully, thankfully I had enough speed to make it out of the dirt on lap 2. And those slips were just not slips at all lap 3, and they were very terrible. Hit a lot of dirt here. This is just a very, very sloppy and poor run. At this point, I'm just like, get me out of this race. Not having a good time. Send me in the Peach Garden so I can do even better. So this was very, very poor performance on my part. I'm not too concerned though. I get mid 118s every single time here for the most part in this game mode with Mach Bike. Not too concerned. Moving on to Peach Gardens. This is probably my second best run in the entire 32 track speedrun. I think Daisy Circuit was my best one in this 32 track one try gauntlet of sorts, and this one comes in as number 2. Normally I use Spear here in general, but I do have some Flame Runner experience on this track. Not as extensive as my Spear experience, but still is some experience nonetheless. My main concern here is being fast enough on lap 3 to take inside of the chain chomp entering the hedge maze on lap 3. Ideally, I want around 40.2, 40.2 in a strong start to lap 3. At worst, like double very low 40.3s and a very strong start to lap 3. That's kind of the main reason why I don't really do the Flame Runner in this game mode, because a lot of the time I make a lot of mistakes even before reaching that point. But this is a time where I actually didn't have that happen. So you guys can see what it actually looks like when I race somewhat good. Sometimes. Sometimes I play good. Sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. But yes, this track is pretty much smooth sailing for the most part. It's just being wise with how wide or tight you take your turns, depending on the, exiting the hedge maze as a common, sticking point for obviously the Spear, but also the Flame Runner. You can really take it super tight because the Flame Runner is much tighter drift compared to the Spear, but the trade-off being not going into the grass bed as well. So come lap 3, that's actually a fairly decent pace to go in front of the chain chomp, and you'll see what I mean right over here. I get a very bad slip drift, but I go for it anyway. I purposely rock wide to the left, and I have alignment very sharp left to right there. And I barely make it past the chain chomp like that. Normally, I don't rock that hard left entering the hedge maze to align myself like that, but I knew I lost too much time to take it in like a dead center alignment like normal, which is more like a gradual left to right angle. So my backup there was excellent. And with that, I actually got a 2-minute 0.8 here, which is excellent for my standard here for a one try with the Flame Runner no less. So very, very pleased with that performance. I'm most proud of this performance and also Daisy Circuit in this speedrun here. Now we get to the final two, Gcn Dk Mountain. Also another track where it doesn't really matter with the Flame Runner here, because I race really well with the Mach Bike most of the time. And I make probably my worst mistakes on this track. This track is very, very challenging to race with the Flame Runner. Very clunky. It's very hard to drive, especially sharp on a lot of turns here. But again, man, decent backups here. I got some unintentional airtime there. When I land here, I purposely yank in my wheelie to slow down so I actually chain before I get airtime. And that is a net positive for me, because I launched so late off into the airtime from the top of the mountain that if I didn't yank in my wheelie, I wouldn't have chained right before launching off the second rock on the mountain. If I didn't do that, I would have lost a whole lot of time. So that's a very giant backup you can do, where if you launch late like I did on the mountain lap 1, you yank in your wheelie pretty hard, that way you can actually chain before being airborne again. Lap 2 here was very bad. Do a wheelie here, but I got a slip drift, which was unintentional. Still got the wheelie off, which is not all that bad. Got a drop, and then I stuck to the mountain here. I don't know how a lot of these main turbos didn't charge in this run, by the way, that one included. But now we come to our biggest mistake over here, being this. And I spin drift a little bit too late, and I fall off. Yeah. So, this is spamming mirror, this in pure frustration. Anyway. I'm actually pretty impressed. For going through a 32 track, 1 try gauntlet, it took me 31 tracks to have the first time where I fall off in general. Trying to go pretty fast like I would in an online TT event. So that was actually very good by my standard. I wasn't really too fussed, you know. It may seem like I was, but I actually wasn't. I'm actually very proud that I lasted almost to the very last track to not fall off once, to be honest. So over here, nothing too noteworthy to really comment on. Very poor run, but that's because I literally hopped off the track. Yes. So, ideally looking for like a 208 or a 207, but that did not happen this time. Maybe next time. And the last track of the speedrun, N64 Bowser's Castle, aka the Big Bad Castle, of course. And this goes very bad, apart from lap 3. So, I think it's probably the 4th mini turbo. No, the 3rd. Yeah, the 3rd mini turbo I missed for no reason at all. Let me watch this back. Yeah, again, like I have all the blue sparks there. I just don't know how my main turbos weren't charging for a lot of these here. Anyway, with all that in mind, when my races start very poorly like this on this track, biggest priority is mitigating all the thwomp cycles, especially that sliding thwomp room and all through laps like you saw in lap 1. And also the fire pillars on this part here for laps 2 and 3. Mostly just lap 3 is the problem part. Lap 2 pillar is never a problem at my pace or in like a very slow pace like this one. Very poor lap 1. Got a flat bridge but a drop. So I tried racing a little bit faster in lap 2. But still had my mistakes, unfortunately. But even still, I'm actually pretty proud of my entire performance here. Again, this was just for pure practice, but I thought maybe you guys might get a little bit of benefit from some insight as to what I'm actually thinking internally of my decisions when I'm actually playing. Obviously, commentating on the fly is one thing. Also, I press the wheelie so many times, but it just doesn't come out. Very frustrating. But yes, in general, hopefully getting, also, see how I'm pressing the, oh my gosh, I'm getting so frustrated just watching this back. Like, literally, like, I'm pressing the D-pad so many times when I'm on a flat ground, and it just doesn't come out for no reason at all. I don't know why. Anyway, you guys are really used to watching my on-the-fly commentary as I'm actually racing. Sometimes I explain things when I play, but hopefully watching this post-commentated with some of my commentary and like what I actually tried to do, explaining what happened, my backup strategy, so on and so forth. Hopefully it was beneficial, and hopefully you guys are looking forward to the series coming back very, very soon. My run was so poor that on lap 3 I had to do the left to right trick of shame. I was too slow. But even with that giant maneuver and the slower ending here, it was still like a mid 0.5 lap 3, I'm pretty sure. If I had the right pillar down and a proper ending, it probably would have been like a mid to high 0.3, probably, so not all that bad. But yes, that is my speedrun. Again, I just had splits there just for something to visually look at. In the real time, the RTA time with the splits will be greatly skewed by the prolonged loading times with the console and through Revolution. So the in-game timer is the way to go. That's how all the speedruns now are timed these days on speedrun.com for this game as well. But guys, hopefully you're looking forward to the return of online TT Land Season 1 coming the next couple of weeks. Be sure to follow the Twitch streams to catch them live. I'm going to stream the rest of the series, and once it's over, I'm going to start uploading everything, so it's just right there guaranteed in the backlog. Just so we're not scounging for, rooms to prolong it week by week like we did before. It lasted for 5 months, but the dying down activity kind of precluded from that schedule continuing. But it's returning, a lot more videos are in the works, and this weekend, we have April World Records coming out, and every single weekend from here on out, getting each one getting caught up until August, entering September. So thank you guys as always for supporting. A lot more is on the way. Thank you for being patient with me. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, comment. I'll see you guys next time. Take care and peace.